Hello race fans, welcome to another video. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and share this video if you like my content. Currently on the road to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, so every bit of your support helps. Today we will be talking about the 2025 All-Star race, and I'm not gonna lie, this was the best All-Star race we've had in quite a while. Arguably the best one of this decade. Not that it has much to compete with anyways. I mean, the only All-Star race that even comes close is 2020. So there's a case to be made that this year's edition was better than, at the very least, the past 4 years combined. And it's really crazy when you think about it, because I had really low expectations heading into this All-Star race. The heat races had their moments, but as always, it all came down to track position. Pretty underwhelming, I know. I would argue the pit crew challenge was more engaging overall at that point. The 71 pit crew won that, giving Michael McDowell the #1 pit stop for the Open and the main event if he were to advance, but in the end he didn't. Now we just have to wait and see how long until Hendrick decides to swap those guys over with the #9, because after costing Chase a potential win at Kansas with that slow stop, some changes may be coming over there. But yeah, considering that the last couple of races, or most of the last couple of races, were pretty underwhelming, and then the All-Star race was going to be held at the short track, and short tracks were abysmal with this Gen 7, and the heat races were pretty dull, I was starting to lose hope that this All-Star race was going to be just pretty ho-hum. Keselowski pretty much had the first heat race on lock the moment he got the pole. Question was who will finish second behind him, and after about 15 to 20 laps of side-by-side battling, Chastain edged out Byron and Blaney for the honors. Now the second heat race was a bit more eventful, if you could say that, especially when Chase Briscoe stayed out during the lap 30 competition caution when everyone else pitted. His gamble did not work. He got shuffled out and got spun out, but other than that, it was pretty much the same as the first hit. Christopher Bell started up front and won that one, and so he will start in the front row besides Brad. Now Kyle Larson, of course, he did not take part in these heat races as he was busy with his Indy 500 qualifying duties. Justin Allgaier once again announced as the reserve driver for the 5. He practiced the car but didn't run in the heat races. So Larson would start from the rear for the main event. Now the good news is he qualified 21st, right around mid-pack. Talking about that Indy 500, he qualified 21st. So he won't have to stay for the Fast 12 or bump day and requalify like he did last year and then rush back to Wilkes County to make the race. He's safe from that. He spent the night at Indy but flew back Sunday morning to be in the with his team for the race. But yeah, the heat races were overall underwhelming. The All-Star Open, however, was really fun, especially in the second half of the race when, up until that point, SVG was on cruise control for the first half. But when that competition caution came out, you know, pit strategy shuffled the field. He decided to take 4 tires, while others like Hocevar, Ty Gibbs, Bubba Wallace, and Michael McDowell, they decided to take 2 in a bid for track position. And as it turns out, 2 tires were the call. Track position mattered. Hocevar had a great launch, and this allowed him to get the clean air he needed to stay out front. But it was absolute anarchy behind them for that second spot. They even went 4 wide at one point. At first it looked like Ty Gibbs had the spot unlocked, but then Ryan Preece passed him and he was closing in on Hocevar really quick. Then a caution came out, which shouldn't have even been a caution in my opinion. I guess NASCAR had another foul flag up their sleeve and were looking for any excuse to put it out. And then Ryan Preece got penalized for going over the choose cone. And this is the first time ever this has happened, by the way. I always knew the choose cone violation was a thing, but I never saw it in play until now. So it was a complete boneheaded move by Preece, as even if he said he could barely see it, and yeah, to be fair, it was hard to see from the TV screen, but everyone else made their choose properly, so just really unfortunate, as this essentially sent him to the back and knocked him out of any chance at advancing to the main event. So with Ryan Preece out, this left the second spot to be decided between the Toyotas of Ty Gibbs and Bubba Wallace. But in the closing laps, the legacy duo of John Hunter and Erik Jones joined the fray after each taking 2 tires during that last caution. And remember what I said, 2 tires were the best call in the open. Just not in the long run, but in the short run as well. And both of them, they made quick work of the 54. And while Bubba did his best to hold them off, even pinching Erik Jones into the wall off of turn 4 at one point, John Hunter eventually wore him out. And he, along with Hosevard, finished 1-2 to advance to the main event. And Noah Gragson, as it's seemingly becoming a yearly occurrence now, he won the fan vote for the 3rd consecutive year, and he also advanced. So after watching the Open, I was a bit more hopeful that the on-track racing during the main event would follow suit, because those last like 40 to 50 laps were pretty fire. Track position may still be king, but as long as drivers kept being aggressive, especially in restarts and using up their tires in the short runs, I figured this could turn out to be an alright race, especially with this new short track tire NASCAR started to use this year that is softer than the usual tire you see from Goodyear. And all things considered, again, what I saw in the main event wasn't perfect, but like I said, it was way better than the last 4 All-Star races put together. Maybe 5 if you want to throw 2020 in there. There's even a good argument to be made that this race was the best short track race ever in the Gen 7 era. I wouldn't say that, but it's got a pretty good case to be top 3. The only races that even come close, in my opinion, are 2024 Spring Bristol and 2024 Iowa. And it wasn't because of tires. Sure, they played a role, at least in the short run, where you could really see the guys on fresher tires use as much of that good rubber as possible to gain as much track position before the outside lane settled in. But it was mostly because of driver aggression, kind of like what we saw in the Open race turned up to 100. I believe Jeff Gluck even tweeted at one point that this race had a record number of lead changes for an All-Star race. I believe the number was 18. Also a record number of green flag passes for the lead. I believe that number was, 59. I know some of that was because of drivers, racing side by side and they use scoring loops to track that number, so that number may be skewed a little bit because there was at one point that were even running 3 wide, and I know the lead changed a little bit between scoring loops, but you get the point. It was a pretty good All-Star race. Also, another thing I noticed now that I see it, in the Open, I mentioned how 2 tires were the right call. In the main event, 4 tires were the right call. I believe it was because, they were running at night, whereas the Open was held in the late afternoon. Cooler temperatures means more grip on the bottom lane, and that probably held to more drivers, taking 4 tires and using those 4 tires to make passes for the lead, which is how the race-winning pass was made, because the guy that made the race-winning pass, and we'll get to that later, but the guy who won the race took 4 tires to win it. They didn't take 2 tires like Hocevar did to win the Open. Now granted, the cautions definitely helped out, but to be fair, they came at timely moments and they were well spread out, giving us a healthy balance of fairly long green flag runs and restart chaos. Granted, some of that was manufactured. Looking at you, Mike Waltrip. But hey, it's the All-Star race. That race has always been a gimmick, so I'll give it a pass, even if the whole promoter's caution thing was a little too much in my opinion, even as far as gimmicks go. Especially since it allowed us to see a few comers and goers. Brad Keselowski looked pretty good early on, and he looked like the guy to beat for the first stretch of the race. I mean, not even Joey Logano could get to him, despite him trying several times. But after the first caution, he lost the lead on a restart after Kyle Busch and William Byron took him 3 wide, and his race went south from there. He will hang around in the back half of the top 10 from that point on until lap 175, when he got sideways in turns 3 and 4 and smacked the outside wall hard, ending his race. Just par for the course at this point, as even in an exhibition race, Bad Brad just can't catch a break, it seems. The Hendrick cars looked pretty good all around. All 4 of them were clearly top 10 cars throughout the race. Especially Larson, since he started from the rear and yet he managed to make it all the way up to 3rd, having arguably one of the better long run cars. It also helped that he was on 4 tires and dude just loves hogging the outside lane, but that last part ultimately ended up being his undoing, as he ended up hitting the wall hard and breaking a toe link. For reference, this happened about 2 laps before the promoter's caution came out. So 35 laps to go in the race, about 35 to go, give or take. So it was a really tough break for Larson. But it all worked out in the end for Chevrolet, because Larson wasn't even eligible to compete in the Manufacturers Showdown, so his poor finish didn't even affect the Chevy camp, as they ended up winning the whole damn thing. And honestly, I'm gonna say it just for the sake of it, but I feel like I was the only one, or one of the few people, that actually understood what the whole deal with the Manufacturers Showdown was all about and how it all worked out. It's just that NASCAR's wording of it was confusing, but simply put, the only reason 5 cars from each manufacturer were eligible, and because Toyota had only 5 cars make it into the main event, Bell, Hamlin, Briscoe, Reddick, and John Hunter. So it was like, you know, manufacturer with the least amount of representation. That's how NASCAR worded it, but it was basically the only reason 5 cars from each manufacturer were eligible was because Toyota had only 5 cars making it into the main event. So both Chevy and Ford will only have 5 of their cars' results count towards the Manufacturers Showdown. And to make it fair and to not give anyone an unfair advantage, the eligible drivers were chosen prior to the All-Star race based on their performance in the heat races. So Toyota had all 5 of the aforementioned drivers that made the race be eligible. Ford had Keselowski, who started from the pole, Logano, Blaney, Chris Buescher, and Josh Berry. And Chevy had Kyle Busch, Chastain, and the rest of them were Hendrick cars, so Elliott, Bowman, and Byron. So because Larson didn't participate in the heat races, because again he was busy at Indy, he wasn't eligible to represent Chevy, which ended up being a blessing in disguise when he hit the wall and broke the toe link late in the race, because his poor finish didn't impact Chevy. And all those Camaro guys I mentioned, they went on to finish in the top 8, so yeah, it all worked out for them in the end. The Toyotas, on the other hand, they had a terrible showing all around. For the most part, they just could not get it going, particularly Denny Hamlin. He did not look good to start the weekend. He struggled in his heat race. He even got passed by Harrison Burton for last place, not once but twice. And Harrison was driving a Rick Ware Racing car, by the way. And that really surprised me. I picked him to win because he ran really well in the Clash, and he's been one of the best on short tracks with this Gen 7 car. He even finished second at this All-Star race last year, but apparently Chris Gale just shit the bed when it came to the setup, and the 11 team showed up with a really tight car. Hamlin could not hold the outside lane to save his life, and that led to abysmal long run speed, which is what Denny is best known for. And that unfortunately carried over into the main event. Yeah, he finished 12th in the end, but if you actually watch the race, out of a 23 car field, Denny Hamlin could not even crack the top 15 for most of it. He only finished as high as he did because of some attrition that happened at the end there with Larson and Keselowski hitting the wall. Also Ryan Blaney getting a flat tire in the final restart. Literally the lone bright spot for Toyota was Christopher Bell. And he looked awesome all weekend long. He was fast in practice, qualified second. He won his heat race to start in the front row for the main event, like I mentioned earlier. He stayed in the top 5 for the majority of it and top 10 all throughout. And he even found himself battling for the win with Joey Logano in the closing laps of the race. And despite Logano's best efforts to hold the lead, because it took Bell 10 laps of side-by-side battling to take the lead away from him, in the end what really screwed him over was the fact that Logano decided to stay out on that final caution instead of pitting, whereas Bell did and took 4. This is similar to how Corey Heim lost the truck race by not having the fresh rubber to hold the lead in the closing laps. So, Chevrolet might have won the Manufacturers Showdown, but it was a Toyota who walked away with $1 million. So shout out to Christopher Bell, Adam Stevens, and the whole 20 team, but most importantly, shout out to North Wilkesboro, because after 2 years of below average racing, the track finally proved that even with this generation of car that has been abysmal on short tracks, it can produce some damn good racing. I really hope this helps their case for not only an actual Cup Series points race in the near future, but also a triple header weekend with Cup, Trucks, and also Xfinity throwing the mix. Because I would really love to see how the Xfinity cars race there. I'm pretty sure they would put on a show, like they always do. But yeah, that pretty much does it for All-Star Weekend. Again, this year's edition was the best I've seen in quite a while. Best of the Gen 7 era by far. Top 3 short track race with this Gen 7. Again, I know it was an exhibition race, but that's just how good I felt it was. Again, like, sub, comment, and share if you enjoyed. I'm currently on the road to 1K by the end of the year, so every little bit of your support helps towards me achieving that goal. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next race.